Have you ever seen a ghost walking among the living? Not a whisper in the dark or a shadow in the corner of your eye, but a real, breathing person who looks exactly like someone you lost forever? Imagine that face, the one you've mourned, the one you trace in old photographs, the one you see every night in your dreams, suddenly appearing before you in the most sterile and unexpected of places, a hospital. What would you do? How would your heart, the very organ you thought had turned to stone, react? If you believe that destiny has a mysterious, intricate, and sometimes heartbreaking sense of humor, hit that like button and stay with me. This is a story from inside the walls of Valentim Hospital, a story about a love that defied death and a secret that was waiting 30 years to be uncovered. The halls of Valentim Hospital in Chicago were Dr. Ethan Carter's kingdom, but it was a kingdom built on ghosts and grief. At 35, he was a living legend in the world of medicine, a brilliant cardiothoracic surgeon whose name was spoken with reverence. He was a millionaire doctor, a status solidified by a revolutionary heart valve he'd patented in his late 20s, an invention that had already saved thousands of lives. He commanded operating rooms with a chilling calm, his hands moving with an artist's precision inside the chests of strangers. He had it all: the respect of his peers, wealth that could last 10 lifetimes, a corner office with a panoramic view of the glittering Chicago skyline. But his kingdom was hollow, his penthouse apartment cold and silent. 2 years ago, the fluorescent lights of this very hospital had flickered over the worst moment of his life. His wife, Amelia, the vibrant, laughing center of his universe, was pronounced dead in the ER after a catastrophic car accident on a rain-slicked Lakeshore Drive. Ethan had been in surgery at the time, saving a child's life, completely unaware that his own was being irrevocably shattered. Grief had since carved a permanent, jagged home in his heart. He'd poured his pain and a small fortune into building the Amelia Carter Memorial Pediatric Wing, a state-of-the-art facility filled with bright colors and cutting-edge technology. It was his penance, his monument to a love cut short, a desperate attempt to create life in the shadow of death. He existed, he worked, he performed miracles, but he didn't live. His heart, the organ he understood with unparalleled intimacy, was locked away, encased in scar tissue. That all changed on a chaotic Tuesday night, the kind of night where the city's symphony of sirens seemed to play on a loop. A code blue alert blared from the ER's pediatric section. A 7-year-old boy, Leo, was in severe respiratory distress, his small body struggling for every precious breath. As the lead pediatric cardiac specialist on call, Ethan descended from the quiet austerity of his office into the controlled chaos below. He was a force of nature in his Navy scrubs, parting the sea of nurses and residents. He pushed through the blue curtain of stall number 3, his eyes immediately locking onto the frantic dance of the monitors, his mind already a whirlwind of differential diagnoses. And then he looked up at the boy's mother, and his world, for the second time in his life, broke apart. Time stopped. The frantic beeping of the machines, the urgent calls for epinephrine, the rustle of sterile packaging, it all faded into a dull, distant hum. Standing there, her face a mask of pale terror, her knuckles bone white as she clutched her son's small, limp hand, was Amelia. It was her, the same almond-shaped green eyes wide with panic, the same constellation of delicate freckles scattered across the bridge of her nose, the same gentle curve of her lips, now trembling with fear. A wave of vertigo, sharp and sickening, washed over him. The floor seemed to tilt beneath his feet. He gripped the cold metal rail of the bed to steady himself, his own heart hammering against his ribs in a wild, painful arrhythmia he couldn't control. Amelia? The name was a ghost on his lips, a broken whisper that was swallowed by the noise of the room. The woman's head snapped towards him, her hair falling across her face. Her eyes, so much like Amelia's, were filled not with the soft recognition he yearned for, but with a fierce, terrified confusion. "What? Who's Amelia?" she cried, her voice raw and desperate. "Are you a doctor? Please, you have to help my son. He can't breathe." The spell was shattered. This wasn't Amelia's soft, melodic voice, the voice that used to read poetry to him in bed. This voice was stronger, tinged with a roughness, a frantic edge that spoke of a lifetime of struggle. He shook his head, a violent motion to clear the fog. He was Dr. Carter. He was in an emergency. He forced himself back into the present moment, the professional mask slamming back into place. "I'm Dr. Carter," he said, his own voice sounding foreign to him. "I'm the head of pediatric cardiac surgery. I'm here to help your son. What's your name?" "Maya. Maya Collins." Maya, not Amelia. As Ethan turned his full attention to the boy, his hands were steady, his commands to the nursing staff precise and unwavering, a testament to his years of grueling training. But his mind was a storm, a civil war of logic and disbelief. While his hands worked to stabilize Leo, his eyes kept stealing glances at her. It wasn't just a resemblance, it was a blueprint, a perfect copy. She was an identical twin to his late wife, but that was impossible. Amelia was an only child. Her parents, who had also passed away in a plane crash a year after Amelia's death, had always been clear about that. There were no other siblings. It simply could not be. Over the next few critical days, Leo was admitted to the pediatric ICU, in the very wing named after Amelia. His condition was a perplexing medical puzzle, a rare inflammatory response that wasn't responding to standard treatments. This medical mystery provided Ethan with a legitimate reason to be a constant presence, to personally oversee Leo's care. It gave him a reason to see Maya every single day. Slowly, through fragments of conversation in sterile hallways and hushed waiting rooms, he began to piece together the mosaic of her life. He learned she was a single mother, a fierce lioness who worked 2 grueling jobs, as a waitress at an all-night diner and a cleaner in a downtown office building, to make ends meet. She lived in a small, cramped apartment in a neighborhood that was a world away from the opulent Gold Coast penthouse where he and Amelia had built their life. She was tough, proud, and so fiercely protective of her son that she seemed to run on pure adrenaline and love. Where Amelia was soft-spoken, a lover of art museums and classical music, Maya was direct, with a sharp, sarcastic wit and hands that were calloused from a life of hard work. They were mirror images, yet polar opposites. Late one night, well after midnight, he found her asleep in one of the deeply uncomfortable waiting room chairs. Her head was slumped against the wall, a thin, scratchy hospital blanket draped over her shoulder. A half-eaten bag of vending machine chips was on the floor beside her. He watched her for a long moment, his heart aching with a confusing, painful cocktail of old grief and a new, unsettling fascination. He looked at her face, so achingly familiar in the dim light, and felt a pang of guilt, as if he were betraying Amelia's memory. He quietly went to the doctor's lounge, poured a fresh cup of coffee, and placed it on the small table beside her, along with a protein bar from his locker. He retreated into the shadows of the corridor before she could wake, an anonymous benefactor in the night. He was becoming obsessed. The rational, evidence-based scientist in him was at war with the grieving husband. Back in the sterile emptiness of his penthouse, he pulled out old photo albums he hadn't touched in 2 years. There she was, Amelia at 20, laughing on a beach in Santorini, her face full of light. He pulled up a picture he'd discreetly taken of Maya on his phone, a candid shot of her looking down at Leo, her expression a mix of love and worry. He held the phone next to the photo. They were the same person, separated only by time, circumstance, and 1,000 unspoken questions. Was he losing his mind? Was his grief so profound that it was conjuring phantoms? Have you ever had to be strong for someone else, even when you felt like you were completely falling apart on the inside? That feeling of having to be the rock when you feel like sand. Share a time you found that inner strength in the comments below. Your story of resilience could be the light someone else needs to see today. Ethan's obsession, fueled by sleepless nights and endless questions, drove him to do something he never thought he would. He used his authority as a millionaire doctor and a powerful board member to dig. He started with Amelia's birth certificate, which he had in his files. Everything was in order, listing her parents, the prestigious hospital of her birth. Then he tasked his personal assistant, under the guise of a confidential hospital research project, to find Maya's records. It took some doing, but they found it. They were born on the exact same day, in the same city, Chicago, but in different hospitals, to different parents. It was a confounding coincidence, a dead end. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place, Leo's medical file. The boy had an extremely rare blood subtype, a specific antigen that was a crucial piece of his diagnostic puzzle. It was a trait he had to have inherited from Maya. Driven by a hunch that felt more like madness than medicine, Ethan went into the hospital's deep archives. He pulled up Amelia's old medical records from a time she had been a patient years ago. He ran a cross-reference. His breath caught in his throat. It was a match. He ran the numbers with a geneticist colleague, posing it as a hypothetical. The statistical probability of two unrelated people sharing this specific rare subtype was less than 1 in a million. It wasn't irrefutable proof, but it was a breadcrumb. It was the first tangible thread in the tapestry of the impossible. Meanwhile, his relationship with Maya was evolving past the initial shock. His awe at her resemblance to Amelia was slowly being replaced by a profound admiration for her sheer resilience. He saw the deep, purple smudges of exhaustion under her eyes, but he also saw an unbreakable will. He started bringing her real food from outside the hospital, knowing she wouldn't leave her son's side long enough to get a proper meal. They fell into a routine of talking for hours during the quiet, lonely nights of the ICU after the daytime bustle had faded. She spoke of Leo, her dreams of one day giving him a small backyard to play in, her fear that she was failing him, and he, for the first time in 2 years, found himself talking about Amelia, not as a sainted ghost on a pedestal, but as a real, flawed, beautiful person. "She would have liked you," he said one evening, the two of them standing at the large window of the waiting room, looking out at the glittering, indifferent city lights. "You have the same fire, the same stubborn streak. She just kept hers a little more hidden behind a paintbrush." Maya looked at him, and for the first time, he saw her ever-present guard begin to lower. "I'm sorry, Ethan, for your loss," she said softly. "It must be so weird for you, seeing my face every day, like I'm a constant reminder." "It was at first," he admitted, turning to face her fully, the reflection of the city dancing in his eyes. "I thought I was going crazy, but now, when I look at you, I just see you, Maya." And he realized, with a jolt that was both terrifying and exhilarating, that it was the absolute truth. He wasn't falling for a ghost. He was falling for the fiery, exhausted, incredible woman in front of him. The final piece of the mystery unraveled because of Leo. The boy's condition took a turn, and the team determined he needed an emergency bone marrow transplant. In a stroke of luck, Maya was a perfect match. But to ensure the absolute best outcome, the doctors ordered a full, comprehensive genetic sequencing for both of them. It was standard procedure for a transplant of this nature. When the results came in, Ethan knew this was his chance. His hands trembled as he accessed the secure files in his office. He pulled up Maya's full genetic report. Then, he accessed his own research database, where a sample of Amelia's DNA was stored from a study they had participated in years ago. He ran the comparison. The result loaded on his screen, a string of data that would change everything. 99.9999%. Match identical twin sisters. The clinical black and white text on the screen hit him like a physical blow. They weren't just lookalikes, they were sisters. And he now carried a truth that would shatter Maya's world. He had to tell this woman, who was already dealing with the potential loss of her son, that her entire life, her very identity, was based on a lie. He found her where he knew she'd be, in the hospital's small, quiet interfaith chapel, praying. He sat beside her in the pew, the silence heavy with unspoken fears. "Maya," he began, his voice low and steady, the surgeon's calm returning to him. "There's something we need to talk about. The results from the transplant workup came back. It's about your son, and about you, and about Amelia." He laid it all out for her, slowly, gently, the DNA, the impossibly rare blood type. And then, he pulled up an old, archived news article on his tablet, one he'd found after days of frantic, targeted searching based on their birth date. The headline read, "Chaos at Northside Daycare After Fire, Several Children Injured." The date was 32 years ago. The article detailed how several toddlers were rushed to different hospitals in the city amidst the smoke and panic. It mentioned two little girls, both around 3 years old, both with minor injuries and suffering from smoke inhalation. One was the daughter of a wealthy couple, the other, the daughter of a young, single mother who worked there. The implication was clear and horrifying. They had been switched at 3 years old. In the confusion, in the panic of the emergency, there had been a terrible, life-altering mistake. Maya, born to a life of privilege, was mistakenly identified and sent home with the struggling working-class mother. And Amelia, born to a single mom, was raised by the wealthy family Ethan knew as her parents. The story concluded with a small, tragic footnote. Maya's biological mother, the single mom, had died in an apartment fire only a few years later, never knowing her real daughter was alive and being raised by another family. Maya stared at the tablet, her face completely unreadable, a statue carved from shock. The silence in the chapel stretched on, thick and heavy with 3 decades of a stolen life. Then a single tear escaped, tracing a path down her cheek. Soon, another followed. She wasn't just crying for the life of comfort and opportunity she could have had. She was crying for the sister she never knew, the parents who weren't hers, and the real mother she never got to say goodbye to. A lifetime of loss, delivered in a quiet hospital chapel. Ethan's every instinct screamed to reach for her, to hold her, to shield her from the pain he had just inflicted. But he held back, giving her the space to process the cataclysm. In that moment, he wasn't a millionaire doctor or a powerful surgeon. He was just a man who had ripped open the world of the woman he was falling in love with. "So I have her eyes," Maya finally whispered, her voice breaking on the words. "But she had my life." "No," Ethan said, his voice firm, finally reaching out and taking her hand, his fingers wrapping around hers. The contact was electric. "She had a life, and you have yours. A life you have fought for, tooth and nail, every single day. A life that has made you the strongest, most incredible person I have ever met." In the weeks that followed, 2 miracles happened at Valentim Hospital. The first was loud and joyous. With the transplant from Maya, Leo began to recover at a remarkable rate. The color returned to his cheeks, and his laughter, weak at first, began to echo in the halls of the Amelia Carter wing, a sound of pure life in a place built from death. The second miracle was quieter, more profound. It was the slow, careful healing of 2 broken hearts. As Maya grappled with her new reality, Ethan was her anchor. He wasn't trying to replace her past. He was helping her build a future that incorporated it. He shared photo albums, home videos, and stories of Amelia, giving Maya the heartbreaking gift of knowing the sister she had lost. And Maya, in turn, gently pulled him out of his own mausoleum of grief. She dragged him out of the hospital for walks in the park, made him laugh with her brutally honest observations about the world, and showed him that his heart, the one he thought was irreparably broken, was still capable of expanding to let someone new in. The day Leo was finally discharged, Ethan walked them to the grand entrance of the hospital. The Chicago sun was bright. The city was alive with noise and motion. "I can never thank you enough, Ethan," Maya said, her eyes shining with unshed, grateful tears. "For saving my son, for showing me everything." Leo was saved by his mother's strength and a piece of her soul, he replied softly. "I just ran the test." He paused, his gaze locking with hers, deep and unwavering. "Maya, when I first saw you, I thought I was seeing a ghost. I thought destiny was playing some kind of cruel, twisted joke on me. But I was wrong. Destiny wasn't showing me what I had lost. It was showing me everything I still had a chance to find." He wasn't looking at Amelia's twin anymore. He wasn't seeing a ghost. He was looking at Maya, the survivor, the mother, the woman he loved. "The life you were supposed to have, the wealth, the easy path. I can't give you back that past," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I want to be part of your future. I want to build a new life with you and with Leo, if you'll let me." A slow, radiant smile spread across Maya's face, a smile that was all her own, and it was the most beautiful sunrise he had ever seen. "I think," she said, squeezing his hand, her voice steady and sure, I'd like that very much, Doctor. As they stepped out of the automatic doors of Valentim Hospital and into the brilliant light of their new life, they were no longer just a doctor and a patient's mother, or a man and the ghost of his wife. They were the beginning of a new story, one born from unimaginable tragedy but forged in hope, proving that sometimes the most earth-shattering secrets are just the universe's complicated, messy way of bringing souls exactly where they were always meant to be. Do you believe that some people are destined to meet, no matter how tangled and improbable the path is? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if this story of a love found against all odds moved you, please subscribe and turn on those notifications so you never miss a beat from inside the dramatic world of Valentim Hospital. Until next time.